is a 2009 young adult paranormal romance novel by Alyson Noel. It was a Lincoln Award nominee in 2011 and a Goodreads Choice Award nominee for Favorite Book in Young Adult Series in 2009. So, I found the audiobook on Libby. It was relatively short. That's why I read it. Not super deep with this one. I feel like I vaguely recall seeing this book in stores back in 2009. The cover definitely looks like it was part of that Twilight craze where paranormal romance books all had a similar look and vibe to them in terms of their cover design and aesthetic. So I figured this might be a fun little read, little blast to the past from when Jenny was a teenager. We start off by meeting Evermore. Yes, that's her real name. A 17-year-old coping with the loss of her parents, sister, and dog in a car accident. Ever is guilty because she was the one who asked her dad to turn the car around so that she could go back and get her sweatshirt, which led to them then hitting a deer. She was the only survivor of the accident, literally watching her family cross over the metaphorical bridge to the afterlife, except for her 12-year-old sister Riley, who stayed behind and now chats up her big sister on a regular basis. Fun fact, Riley, in the course of my research into this little novel, has her own separate series by the same author. I haven't read it. I might. It looks semi-interesting. Anyway, Ever now lives with their Aunt Sabine, and though she's lost her family, the accident left Ever with the ability to read people's minds and see their auras. Listening to all that, in retrospect, I feel like I've thrown a lot at you. I apologize. Ever's got a lot going on already. A lot of her mind-reading stuff is tactile. It's not completely tactile, but a lot of it depends on her being able to touch people. So she basically has to cover herself up from head to toe so she never accidentally touches anybody. Also, I recall her mentioning a scar on her forehead from the accident, but it doesn't really come up all that much. She wears headphones all the time to block out the kind of psychic noise she hears from other people. She gets migraines a lot as a result of it. It's generally very disruptive to her life and her mental health. So Ever now lives in California with her aunt and has two friends at school, Haven and Miles. Haven is clingy and insecure, Miles is the gay comic relief. They don't know about Ever's powers. So one day, a new kid comes to school named Damon Auguste, an emancipated, super hot rich boy who constantly drinks a red liquid out of a glass bottle and who has no aura. And when he's around, Ever's psychic powers calm down a little bit. Haven wants him, but naturally, he only wants Ever. This naturally leads to some friction between Ever and Haven, who starts hanging out with this new girl in town, Drina, who also seems to have some sort of connection to Damon. Haven quickly becomes unhealthily attached to Drina and won't shut up about her. She and her other friend, Evangeline, start partying with Drina, only for Evangeline to turn up missing, and then dead! But more on that later. What ensues between Ever and Damon is an incredibly frustrating back and forth. He loves me not, I love him not. Ever likes Damon, but he keeps flirting with the school bitch, Stacia Miller. He insists that he's into Ever and constantly does this little magic trick where he pulls a red tulip out from nowhere and gives it to her. But he also does the same thing with Stacia, but with a white rosebud. Put a pin in that, we're coming back to the flower stuff later. He also gets with Ever for some dates, once to Disneyland, another time to the beach, a different time to the fucking racetrack. But Loverboy has a habit of ghosting her after they get together. He also convinces Ever to ditch school multiple times, clearly not caring if she gets in trouble. How incredibly considerate of him. I will grant Ever the compliment of having somewhat more of a spine than Bella Swan in that she chews Damon out a few times over this and also gives him the silent treatment too. I'm tempted to deduct points for giving him so many chances, but Damon is a fairly good liar. I'll be getting into that later. What brings things to a head is Haven. She ends up getting a tattoo at Drina's behest, and while snooping to figure out what the hell Damon's about, Ever sneaks into his largely empty mansion and finds Haven in a bad way, with Damon biting her wrist. She understandably freaks out and starts trying to save Haven, and Damon knocks her out somehow. When Ever wakes up, she remembers nothing. When she returns to school the next day, she finds Haven alive and well. A surprise for the audience, but not for dear, darling, memory-wiped Ever. She quickly does remember what happened, though. Can't remember if it's that same day or the day after. It really doesn't matter. She figures it out eventually. And Damon finally reveals himself. You see, while the author has clearly been laying the breadcrumbs necessary for us to conclude that Damon is a vampire, he is not. Not sure why she would do such a thing, though maybe it has something to do with the fact that this came out in 2009. Damon is not a vampire. We learn a little immediately and a lot later on that he's an immortal. By way of alchemy, I believe it was his father that basically came up with the elixir of life, otherwise known as that suspicious red liquid Damon's drinking all the time. Also, he can read minds for some unfathomable reason, and I'm sure this is entirely unconnected to any other properties that were popular at the time. Also, he can read minds for some unfathomable reason that I'm sure is entirely unrelated to any other properties that might have been popular at the time this book was published. Ever, in what might be one of the most rational choices I've ever seen in a romantasy novel, tells Damon to fuck all the way off and not come near her again, and so Damon leaves. This is where the book starts to get into strange territory, and I know that sounds a bit wild given everything I've said thus far, but hear me out. Ever, out of literally nowhere, develops an alcohol problem. I'm so torn, because in the grand scheme of things you might find in a young adult novel, alcohol dependence is hardly the weirdest of them, right? Like teens drink, some of them go overboard, right? Social issue to be plucked and placed upon the page. But it just doesn't seem like one you see a lot in a lot of young adult fantasy or paranormal romance novels, and it kind of hits us out of nowhere in the third act of the book? I don't know, whatever. It's definitely past the middle part. This book's got kind of weird pacing. I'm getting into that later. But Ever's reason for developing this issue actually does make some practical sense within the context of her character arc. So basically, Ever goes out and reconnects with Haven and Miles, and while with them, actually discovers that alcohol basically muffles her powers. All that psychic noise goes quiet when she's drunk. And since Damon's not around anymore, remember, his presence had basically the same effect on her, to act as that psychic buffer, Ever is desperate for relief. Hence, alcoholism. Obviously, she gets caught out eventually. Stacia Miller, aka Regina George, basically rats her out. She gets suspended, and Ever's fine with that because she has somehow stockpiled a good deal of alcohol and is happy to just get buzzed all day without interruption. It's here that I have to confess a small problem. Because I listened to this as an audiobook, I was not taking notes the way I usually do when I read a physical or electronic book. Consequently, I forget the precise order of events here, but this is the gist. There's a minor character, Ava, who's psychic. Not an immortal, so far as I can tell, but still psychic. She's been encouraging Ever to tell her ghost sister Riley to move on and stop lingering in the world of the living, which Ever has been extremely averse to for, I think, pretty obvious reasons. Now, at some point, Ava teaches Ever to put up her own psychic shield to keep everyone else's thoughts out. Once this happens, Ever's life dramatically improves, and the problem is that I can't recall if this happens before or after the climax of the book. So Miles and Haven are at a party, and Ever spontaneously decides she's going to join them. If I recall correctly, I think she was spurred on by a dream she had. Except that when she gets to the canyon where the party's supposed to be, no one's there. Except for Drina! Yeah, so Drina comes and reveals several things in her villainous speech. She lured Ever to the canyon. She's an immortal. Ever has been reincarnated multiple times. And she's gotten with Damon every single time. And so jealous Drina has killed her every time. And now she's going to kill her again. Just like she killed Haven's friend Evangeline. Oh, and also she's Damon's ex-wife.
What did you say?
And suddenly, Ever finds herself in a place called Summerland with Damon. Summerland is basically another reality where thoughts have energy, and so all you have to do is think about something in order to manifest it into reality. I'm sorry, I'm just, I hate, you will never know how much I hate that word. I hate it. Every idiot on TikTok uses it to justify not putting any effort into getting what they want. They think that if they just think hard enough about something, it'll magically come to them. The law of attraction is degenerate pseudoscience bullshit, and Rhonda Byrne is an ass for propagating it. Back to the story, Damon tells Ever that, yep, she's an immortal because he made her one, because he saved her life after the car accident that killed her family. This is also where he dumps his backstory about his dad being an alchemist and all that. Oh yeah, and he made Drina an immortal because she was dying during the plague and he was married to her, and no, Ever, of course they were never divorced. How the fuck do you think a pair of immortals are gonna walk up to the goddamn courthouse and answer those questions? That was actually a moment of decent logic. Gotta give that to Damon. In any case, he's met Ever in damn near every incarnation she's had, and he falls in love with her because she's always so good and kind and caring. And Drina hated that because she and Damon were always living hedonistically together. Ever's understandably overwhelmed, so Damon's like, I'll wait for you, Ever. If I recall correctly, he also tells her that she has a choice about being an immortal. I distinctly recall there being a choice, although I don't know how he can make her into an immortal, and now she has all the powers of an immortal, But then also she gets a choice about whether she's in a I don't get it. I don't get it. So Ever goes home, thinks about it, briefly stops and tells her sister it's time for her to move on, and grieves when Riley finally passes on to the afterlife. No big deal, minor detour. Does some research and realizes that the tulips were a low-key symbol of Damon's true and everlasting love, and then decides that she loves Damon and wants him back. So she tries to summon him telepathically. It doesn't work. She does, shortly after that, find Drina in her kitchen, though, so draw whatever conclusion you want about that.
You can't catch me, gay thoughts.
Drina, aka Lady Exposition, tells Ever that she's coming back with a metal folding chair ready for round 2. She wants Damon back, and she's prepared to kill Ever to get him. Oh, and by the way, no big deal, Drina is also responsible for killing Ever's family. Literally by sending the deer into the path of her car. Yeah. So, Drina tries to kill Ever, fucks her up real bad again, and then Ever, driven by the righteous fury and power of love about the death of her family, weakly punches Drina in the chest. Which kills her. Literally knocks Drina down, and shortly after results in her turning to dust. And then when Damon shows up, he explains that Ever hit Drina in her heart chakra, which was her weakest one because she had no love left in her. Pace yourself, Jenny, pace yourself. We'll get there. We'll get there. So, blah, 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 romance, blah, blah, blah. I love you so much, Kermie. I mean, Damon, I want to be with you forever. And then the book ends. Well, I think I have an alternate title for this book now. Twilight, but if it was 100% more unhinged, and also if Bella had something resembling common sense and a spine. Bear in mind that last one really isn't that high of a bar to climb over. Before we launch into this, can I ask a question? just a quick question. For people who enjoy things like Evermore, Fourth Wing, ACOTAR, just really quick. Why do so many of you find the idea of your partner being able to read your mind so sexy? Why is this a trope that I keep finding in romantasy, which implies that people enjoy it? I mean, my casual assessment of this is that it might be low-key appealing to people whose partners are stoic or otherwise kind of difficult to read. I also feel like it might be appealing to people who struggle to, or, make a choice not to communicate effectively with their partners. Not to get up on my soapbox, but I'm not going to say anything. He just needs to figure out why I'm angry. It's bad communication, and some people do that, and getting off my soapbox. I'm not judging you. You do you. I'm just trying to figure out why this trope is so fucking popular. Because I, personally, cannot think of a greater hell than anyone being able to read my mind. And I feel like this becomes 100% less appealing when you start applying reality to it. Like, do you really want your partner reading every weird, petty, embarrassing, uncharitable thought that pops into your head? Do you really want them to have access to your unorganized, uncensored thoughts? Because I, personally, would rather go skydiving without a parachute. Anyway. So, this book was a wild ride. Again, I definitely did not see Ever's alcoholic arc coming. I mean, Ever's hardly the first teenager to cope with trauma using alcohol, but I wasn't expecting the fantasy psychic immortal book to suddenly say, fuck it, it's drinky time. I just felt like it came out of nowhere. So did the fact that Damon took Ever to the racetrack on a date. Jesus Christ, he also provoked her into using her psychic powers to pick the winning horses, which I guess this is just the kind of content you get when the writer isn't a Mormon. I feel like part of why Ever's drinking arc was so strange to me was because of the book's pacing. She breaks up with Damon, goes down the alcoholic rabbit hole, maybe doesn't clean a brat. Again, I don't quite recall the order of events here. Then she gets attacked by Drina and learns what immortals are. She goes home, has the whole thing with her sister's ghost finally departing. Then she gets attacked again. Story ends soon after that. I feel like the climax should have been at the beach. I feel like that should have been the peak final action of the story. Then as part of the denouement, Riley, the sister, moves on, big dramatic sad, then we end on a lighter note with Ever getting back with Damon. End scene makes sense. Also, Drina and the deer. Jesus Christ, that was so contrived. 'Twas I that sent the deer in front of your family's car! Like, you have to be kidding me, come on. If you told me that she had slashed the tires, if you told me she had somehow created the illusion of a deer in front of the car knowing Ever's dad would swerve, I would have said fine. Still kind of contrived explanation here, but you were murderous and it worked, so whatever. But this just broke the suspension of disbelief entirely. Just let Ever's family be dead as a result of a stupid accident. It doesn't have to be that deep. It contributes nothing to the plot. If you really needed this scene to happen and you needed Ever to be righteously angry over her family, you could have had Drina making some nasty, snide remarks about Ever's family instead, and I think it would have justified a similar response. And the, punching her right in the heart chakra thing. Okay. This is a series, so I'm sure it gets explained later on, but I don't recall much lead up to the introduction of chakras in this story's mythology, only alchemical mythology. I can't really say what was going on in the author's head, but this reads to me like she wanted to have one more confrontation between Ever and Drina, and she needed a way for Ever to win, hence the whole Drina's a loveless skank, and that's why lightly punching her in the chest made her literally crumble to dust. Sorry, that sure was a scene. I feel like I'm being very disorganized with this review thus far, and it's because a lot of what makes this book so bizarre to me is some of the choices that were made. Okay, let me try to organize myself a little bit. Oh, wait, no, actually, there's one more thing I need to ramble about before I do my usual breakdown. It's super nitpicky and stupid, but I need to rant. So, remember when I mentioned that Damon kept giving Ever red tulips and Mean Girl Stacia white rosebuds? We later find out, when Ever goes looking it up on the internet, that red tulips symbolize undying love, and white rosebuds symbolize the heart that knows no love, the heart ignorant of love. And, okay, so, I'll qualify this by saying that Ever reads this off a website that mentions flower meanings in the 1800s, so maybe Alyson Noel found a completely different website back in 2008 or 2009 when she was writing this book. But every single website I found says that pure white rosebuds symbolize girlhood. A few places went a little deeper and suggested that white rosebuds, by representing girlhood specifically, imply that the recipient of the flower is too young for love. This is implied to mean romantic love, as roses are often associated with romantic love and affection. Not all of them, I'll grant you, but the most popular colors, red and pink, definitely are. So I will say bluntly that I'm assuming an extra layer of meaning here. None of the websites I saw implied that a white rosebud was meant to be an insult or a condemnation of the recipient's character. The vibe is very much, this is what you get for a young girl because there's no romantic meaning implied with this particular rose. Now, I quoted directly from the book when I said that Ever's research says that white rosebuds mean the heart that knows no love, the heart ignorant of love. And in my opinion, this seems like a reach, kind of a petty and malicious twisting of what's otherwise a fairly neutral meaning. White roses signify young girls who are too young to experience romantic love. It does not imply that they are incapable of love. After all, young girls can love their family and friends, only that they're too young for romantic love. It occurs to me that I've just spent a few minutes ranting about something that ultimately doesn't mean that much, but let's just say that this isn't the first time I've plunged into the world of flower symbolism, and I feel the need to make this knowledge useful somewhere. So, long story short, the author made the meaning of the white rosebud a bit more malicious than it actually is so that she could do a take that to Stacia. Okay, now that I've gotten that out of my system, it's tricky for me to comment on the writing when I've consumed this as an audiobook. Narrators have a way of smoothing over awkward sentence structure, and so I'll decline to offer an opinion on it. The storytelling I'm pretty sure I've already given you the gist of, but a few other notes. This book, for all that it seems to have been riding on the Twilight craze, was a lot livelier than Twilight was, and I don't mean in the sense that it was unhinged. Ever actually had friends that she had an emotional attachment to, even if Haven was a bit of a jealous, petty bitch. She had an aunt that she had a good relationship, and a nice relationship with her ghost sister. Obviously, Damon is largely the focus of the plot, but you get the sense that Ever has a lot going on in her life beyond him, unlike Bella, whose entire world eventually comes to revolve around Edward once she meets him. Friends and family were, if I recall correctly, shoved into the background to focus on Edward and the Cullens. So I feel like Evermore really succeeded at creating more fleshed out life for its main character than Twilight did. On the downside, I wasn't a fan of Drina playing Lady Exposition in her 2 appearances at the end of the book. First, I really feel like she should have had more of a presence throughout the book. She's mentioned a lot regarding her connection to Haven and Evangeline, but she isn't really there. I feel like there should have been more overt interactions between her and Ever, or sightings over the course of the story. I definitely sense that she was the big bad because I've got those well-honed YA instincts, but at the end the payoff was just not great. I didn't understand her as a threat or dread her all that much, and those 2 big villainous speeches where she basically monologues about everything she's done, as a character in her role in the story I felt Drina was underused. As for the rest of the characters, Miles was a funny friend, just kind of there. Haven was a possessive catty bitch, but honestly, I can't say that's unrealistic, especially for high school. I can't judge Ever for being friends with her. God knows I had a few friends in high school that were kind of similar. Incidentally, I am not friends with those people as an adult, and you get one guess as to why. Ever was interesting. I liked her well enough. She used to be popular, but after the death of her family and the development of her powers, she had to forcibly isolate herself, which clearly takes a massive strain on her mental health. Ever is terrified at the idea of her sister, Riley, moving on to the afterlife because she's the one person from their original family she has left. I mean, goddamn, even their dog died in the car crash. Ever's relationship with her aunt is awkward but loving because she recognizes that Sabine wasn't really interested in raising her, but does it anyway out of love and obligation. Ever struggles in her relationship with Haven, valuing her as a friend, but also struggling to cope with Haven's jealous and petty nature. Overall, I feel like Ever was a pretty well-developed character. My only issue with her was her continued willingness to engage with Damon. So on to him. Damon felt like a setup. He's a weirdly rich, emancipated miner. He's traveled all over the world and worked as a model. He's super hot and he doesn't care about school. He drinks a weird red liquid and never seems to eat. Twilight was published in 2005. The movie came out in 2008. Evermore was published in 2009. So I think I knew what path I was being led down. I feel like the whole biting Haven's wrist thing was meant to be playing on the idea that he's a vampire. Now that I think of it, the whole not eating and only drinking a mysterious red liquid out of a bottle smells like a setup too. Damon, as a character, was... Okay, I will grant you that unlike Twilight, I actually understand why Ever is into him. He's actually charismatic and fun. He takes her to Disneyland on their first date, they talk, he actually shows interest in her, and I get it. I get it. I haven't the faintest clue why Bella was so crazy over Edward Cullen, but I get why Damon appeals to Ever. And their relationship did have its ups and downs. Ever did get absolutely pissed every time Damon decided to ditch her, and gave him a hard time when he showed up the next day expecting her to still be chill with him. I also understand why she kept giving him second chances despite the mixed signals. Again, Damon is charming. He charmed her back into his good graces. It's around the part where everything is revealed that I start to get annoyed. Damon is a mind reader, and he was reading Ever's mind covertly the entire time. She rightfully tells him to fuck off, but then chooses to take him back later because, everlasting true love, he gave me tulips or some shit. And it's just, this dude lied to you, and he has literally been invading your privacy this entire time without your knowledge by reading your mind. He encouraged you to skip class because he doesn't care about school because he's an immortal and he doesn't have to care, not caring that you get to deal with the fallout from it. And also he played mind games with you about those tulips and white rosebuds as some sort of dumb test. I'm just saying for me, personally, long before this point would I be telling him to back off and say, nah, I'm good, this won't be happening, you are sketch as hell and I'm not into it. But, of course, this is a paranormal romance, and that means they get together in the end and I assume have a hybrid vampire baby at some point. I don't know. I don't think I care enough to read the rest of the series. Might check out the Riley Bloom series, though. That looks kind of interesting. Overall, not a bad book. It is what it is, and at least Ever was a decent protagonist to lead the story with. So yeah, pretty fun read. I liked it well enough.